Welcome my dear friends. So welcome to this course on Project Management Professional. This course is based on PMP version 5 which has been launched by PMI US. So this is a 4 days program in which we take you through this multiple topics. So the first we are going to see what is a project and we will see what is project management. After that we are going to see what are the 10 knowledge areas which are most important in PMP, and then we will see the 5 process group of PMP. And finally, within this 4 days, we are going to go through this particular knowledge areas and 47 processes. So we will see this knowledge areas, process groups and 47 processes. Now let's start. So first, let's get introduced to what is a project. We all are working on projects, but let's formally define what is a project. So because everyone might have an individual perspective about a project, might have its own definition on a project, let's see the PMI perspective of looking towards a project. So what is a project? So we define a project is nothing but a temporary endeavor which is undertaken to create a unique product, a unique service or a unique result. Now what does this mean? So to understand this meaning of a project, let's go to the characteristics of a project. And let's understand these 3 characteristics. So the first characteristic of a project, when I say a project is a temporary endeavor, what does that temporary mean? So that temporary means it has a beginning and it has an end. Now when I say a project and when I say that it is temporary in nature, which means it has a start date which is defined in some other document, which is defined by somebody. And it also has an end date. So let's take an example. Let's say we are an IT company. We are a software development company. Okay, and I am building a software for one of my clients. So let's say my client is Bank of America. And I am building a banking portal or a software for my client. And the duration of this project is, let's assume 1 year, 12 months. And this project is going to start on 1st of Jan 2017. And it is going to end on 31st of December 2017. And what are these 2 dates then? Which means this is a defined start and this is a defined date given by someone. And who is that someone? So the one who issues the start date and end date is someone nothing but my sponsor. And you will see this in the next slides, how we define this start date and end date. Now, basically we are also going to see this 5 process groups and the 10 knowledge areas in PMP. So let's go back to the slide. Now, when we have seen this characteristics, the next that we are going to see is the difference between operations and the difference between projects. So how are these 2 different? So first, let's see what is an operation and then we will see what is a project. So we say operations are ongoing and they are repetitive in nature. On the other hand, the projects are temporary, which you have already seen, and they give a unique product or service or result. Now let's take a live example to understand what is an operations and what is a project. So how many of you read newspaper? Oh good. So we have a good number of people reading newspaper here. Okay. So when I say everybody needs a newspaper, every day morning you get a newspaper at your home, at your doorstep. So what is it? Is it a project? Or is it operations? So let's go a little deep into it. Every day morning you get a newspaper. So one poor guy, he comes at your doorstep, he drops the newspaper and he collects some money from you. So the mean by which he drops the newspaper at your doorstep every morning at the same time is nothing but an operations. And why? Because this is an ongoing task. This is a repetitive task. He is not doing something differently every day. He is every day doing the same repetitive task of dropping a newspaper. And that's why we say distribution of a newspaper is nothing but what? It's an operations. Now let's go a little deep. Every day do you get the same newspaper or do you get a different newspaper? So I believe we get a fresh news every day and we don't read the stale news. So every day we get a new news article. Some news, some changes, some highlights of some country, some state, etc., etc. So which means we are getting a unique product, a unique service or a unique result, and which means publishing of a newspaper is nothing but what? It's a project. Now to just summarize, when I say I distribute a newspaper at your doorstep, it's an operations. But when I say I'm publishing a newspaper as a publication house, it is nothing but a project. Let's take an ID example now. So let's say we are a software company again. We are working for Bank of America, and the Bank of America has given us a contract for building the banking portal. So this banking portal which you are going to build for a client is going to be of 12 months. We are going to build this product and hand it over to our clients. So this time of 12 months is nothing but a project where we will build this software, we will build this banking portal and hand it over to our clients. Once this software is built, what we do? We need to support the software. There will be small changes, there will be small incidents, problems, chaos, escalations, changes, minor changes, major corrections, some system flow will change, some logic will change, and where will all that come in? That will come in the operations. So now is it very clear? So building of a software is nothing but projects, and supporting that software is nothing but an operations. Clear? So now let's go towards the characteristics which are common between projects and operations. Now what are these characteristics? First, the project and operations both need people. So without people, without resources, neither can I make a project nor can I successfully deliver an operations. Second, we say projects and constraints both are constrained by limited resources. Now for project as well as for operations, I always have a limited resource given by my sponsor, and I have to manage my project or an operations within that limited resources. And third, both my projects and my operations, they are planned together, they are executed, and they are controlled. Now what does this mean? So before this, I will take you to page number 61 from PM Bob, where you will understand what is this planning, execution and control. So every project, it follows this simple life cycle of a process group. So this process groups is nothing but a life cycle, and they will always come one after the other. So always, first the project is initiated, and when I say initiated, it means that the sponsor is going to sign a charter, and that is a birth for a project. So that is when my project has got a birth, a new baby has come in, and the charter is given to us as a project manager, and now we are going to nurture this baby. We will make the project management plan, which happens at the planning stage. Once we have already planned how our project will be done, how I am going to build the banking portal for Bank of America, somebody has to work on ground, and where will that happen? That will happen in the execution stage. So once we have executed the project, at some milestone, I need to stop. I cannot just check the deliverable at end of 12 months. So what will I do? After every 3 months, I am going to check certain deliverables of my project. And that deliverables or a milestone at a point when I check this deliverable is nothing but monitoring and control. And finally, when I close this project, when this entire project is done after 12 months, that is nothing but closing. Now then we have seen that project and operations, they do planning, execution and control together. But they have not mentioned about initiating and closing. The reason is because initiating and closing only happens in the phase of operations. Initiating and closing happens only in the phase of projects. But in operations, we do not have initiation. The reason is because the project is closed, and once that project is closed, it is handed over to the operations manager. On the other hand, the operation never has an end date. For example, when you create a product, or let's say you have created this banking portal, do we know that when this banking portal is going to scrap? No, not really. So we just know the end of the project, but we don't know the end of the operations. And that is why there is no closing in the operations. It is only called as diversification. Now this topic we are also going to see much more in detail in the next chapter, where we will see the life cycle of the project. Let's go back to the slides. Now, The next topic is projects. And what is the need of initiating a project? Why do we start a project? Why do we do so much of work? So there is a simple reason for it. One, sometimes there is a market demand. The market is demanding it, the customer is demanding it. Sometimes it's an organizational need. So your organization needs a certain project. So let's say, for example, your organization needs to start an ISO implementation project, or your organization wants to become an ISO 27 certified company, or your organization needs to implement compliance, COVID. So this might be few requirements, or customer request. Sometimes a customer is requesting you to create a particular kind of service or a product or a result. So this might be one need, or there is a technological advance. So let's assume that you are using Microsoft, let's say Microsoft XP, and now you want to move from Windows XP to Windows 7. So in this case, what will you do? There has to be a technological advanced project, and that is nothing but one of the need why we are initiating a project. And last but not the least, the legal requirement. Let's say you're a bank, you're a banking organization, and in that case you have to follow all the rules and regulations given by RBI, right? Similarly, let's say you're a telecom company, you need to follow all the rules and regulations given by TRAI. Let's say you're an insurance company, you have to follow all the legal requirements given by RDA. And these are nothing but the legal requirements why I am starting a project. Now, are these the only points why I start a project? Not really. But these are the basic points or where I need to initiate a project. So is it clear? Let's go to the next topic. Now, here if you see, what is a project objective? The most important point in my project is nothing but defining its objective. And what if this objective is not defined? What will happen to it? So everyone knows, if I don't have a defined objective, there is no clear line when I can see my project. I don't know whether it will succeed or fail. And if I have defined objective, if I have a defined plan in place, I am absolutely perfectly sure that I will achieve this objective of my project. Now, what is this objective? Let's take a deep dive. So, objective. Where do I mention this objective? Somebody has to define this objective, somebody has to write it down, and who will do it? So, we say initially, when we have seen at the page number 61, we have seen a process called as initiation, where we have developed a project charter. So, the sponsor is one who will define a high level objective of my project. So, let's say for example, I am an IT company, let's say I am IBM. And I have taken a contract from Bank of America to build a banking portal. So when I, as the IT head, I go to the client Bank of America, I take this project, and when I take this project, I create a project charter. I write down the basic objective of this banking portal. And what is the basic objective? For providing all the banking functionalities, providing fund transfer, payment gateway, so debit card payments, credit card payments, applying for loan, tracking of loan, card statements, etc., etc., etc. So all these objectives are going to be written down by my sponsor in this project charter. Now, the project is completed only when all these objectives are met. So even if there is one objective which is missed out, what will happen? There will be an escalation. The client will not be happy, no customer satisfaction. The product is not complete, and that is when I will say the project has failed. And to make sure that the project has succeeded, I need to achieve all the objectives of my project. We say who is responsible for achieving this objective of the project. So the prime responsibility of achieving all these objectives is the project manager. But along with the project manager, the entire team has to contribute. The entire project team will have to make sure that the project has succeeded. But the prime responsibility, or I would say in a better way, in a PML language, I would say the accountability is of the project manager. Next, why do we need this so many processes of 47 processes? Why are we studying for this 4 days? The reason is because these are the enablers. This 47 processes, if they are followed religiously in our project, the project is definitely going to succeed. So this processes, 47 processes, we say they are nothing but the enablers. Also, we say the project objectives are determined at the initiation stage. And where do we determine it? We determine it in the project charter. So in the project charter, we have defined this high level project objectives. Now we are going to detail out these objectives and we are going to make a scope, and this will happen in the planning stage. Now let's go ahead. We say all these objectives have to be smart objectives. Now what do we say smart? Smart is not good looking or a handsome objectives or a beautiful objectives. So when I say smart objectives, it means all my objectives have to be specific. And when I say specific, it means precise, well defined. Okay? The second, we say I need to have measurable objectives. Now what does measurable mean? Measurable means that I need to be able to cross check whether I have achieved these objectives or not achieved these objectives. So generally in projects we have KPIs, key performance indicators. And what are these KPIs? These KPIs are defined so that I can check whether these objectives are met or not met. And if it is not measurable, there is no point of having an objective, right? Next, my objectives should be achievable. And when I say achievable, it means that I should not commit star and moon to my customer. So commit something which you can really deliver, and if you have committed, you have to deliver. And that's why I say all these objectives have to be achievable. Realistic. So when I say realistic, is it really possible to build? Is it really possible to implement? So sometimes my customer or my end user might ask something star and moon. Okay, he might ask something which is not really possible, technically feasible. So I have to make sure the objectives which I am committing, the scope which I am defining, the deliverables which I am going to give it to my customer, they have to be realistic and they can be really implemented in real life. And last but not the least, the objectives have to be timely. So what does timely mean? Is there a deadline? For every objectives, there has to be a deadline. There has to be a due date. And if there is no due date, there is no deadline, there is no point of doing an objective. Also, is it feasible to meet that deadline? It is also very important. And that is why we say every objective in my project charter has to be a smart objective.